In a quiet provincial town where time flowed slowly and deliberately lived Basil the cat. Not that Basil, the one who deceived Pinocchio, but a perfectly good-natured and lazy ginger cat who loved to sleep in the sun and steal sausages from the kitchen table. Basil was a cat with a rich imagination, and each of his sausage hastes was like a complex spy mission where he was Agent Zeracat and the sausage was a secret weapon. One day, during yet another special operation in the kitchen cabinet, Basil stumbled upon something completely unusual. Behind an old saucepan, he found a worn but elegant top hat. Curiosity overcame caution, and Basil, forgetting about the sausage, climbed onto the shelf and plopped the hat on his head. In that very second, the room spun, a smell of vanilla and socks filled the air, and Basil felt himself talking. Or rather, not just talking but philosophizing. He looked at his paw and said, existential crisis. Is there any real difference between a paw and a sausage? And isn't life just a pursuit of a bigger piece of bologna? Frightened by his own voice, Basil tried to take off the hat, but it was stuck fast to his head. He ran around the kitchen, bumped into chairs, tried to knock the hat off against the door frame, but it was all in vain. The hat turned out to be magical and rather clingy. In the end, exhausted and frightened, Basil burrowed under the sofa, where his roommate, a hamster named Arkady, was peacefully napping. Arkady was a serious, even austere hamster. He believed in discipline, order, and regular exercise in his wheel. He despised Basil for his laziness, theft, and constant attempts to have him for dinner. Basil, in despair, blurted out all his philosophical reflections and told about the magic hat. Arkady, awakened by the loud speeches, initially thought he was having a nightmare. But then, carefully listening to the cat, which was extremely unusual for him, he frowned his small but stern eyebrows. A magic hat, you say? Philosophical reflections. Poppycock. You just ate too much catnip. Arkady scoffed, but a spark of curiosity flickered in his eyes. But it's true. I can't take it off. And I'm saying strange things. Basil pleaded. Arkady, thinking for a moment, suggested, okay, let's take a scientific approach to the problem. First, let's determine the physical parameters of the hat. Maybe there's some kind of fastening mechanism. And so Operation Remove the Hat from Basil began. Arkady, armed with a magnifying glass which he used to study the properties of his feed, began to carefully examine the hat. Basil, anxiously watching him, continued to philosophize. Isn't a magnifying glass just a magnifying glass, reflecting our desire to see more meaning in a meaningless world? Arkady, ignoring the philosophical outbursts, methodically studied the hat. Suddenly, he noticed a tiny, almost imperceptible button. Ah! Here it is! Arkady exclaimed triumphantly. A deactivation button. Let's see. Arkady squeezed the button with all his might with his tiny paw. There was a quiet click, and the hat smoothly slid off Basil's head. Basil felt that he had become himself again, lazy, a little silly, but quite happy cat. He immediately forgot about all his philosophical reflections and rushed to the kitchen table to finish his sausage special operation. Arkady, left alone under the sofa, pondered. He picked up the hat and, unable to resist the temptation, tried it on. And then, Arkady the hamster began to speak in verse. Oh, the joy of being! Oh, the cycle of grain! How sweet is the taste of carrots that await me in my burrow! Arkady, horrified by his poetic outbursts, tried to take off the hat, but in vain. It, as in the case of Basil, stuck to his head. And so rumors spread around the town about a cat philosopher and a hamster poet. Basil continued to steal sausages, but no longer with philosophical reflections. And Arkady, with a magic hat on his head, wrote poems about the meaning of life and how terrible it is to be a hamster pod. And so they lived, two friends, enemies, a cat and a hamster, in a quiet provincial town, constantly getting into funny and ridiculous situations. And although Arkady still despised Basil for his laziness, he was secretly grateful to him for the magic hat which, although it turned him into a poet, also showed him that in life, even the most serious, there is always room for a little magic and a little madness. And of course, for a good poem about carrots.